Welcome to the Underestimated Club. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Alex.
We're two moms and founders who've been told you can't more times than we can count, and we did it anyway.
This is the space where motherhood meets ambition and where business dreams are built between meltdowns and deadlines.
Each week, we pull back the curtain on the messy, magical, and often misunderstood world we navigate as women who are constantly underestimated. By society, by systems, and sometimes even by ourselves.
No topic is off limits, from scaling a business with a baby on your hip to confronting bias in boardrooms. We're getting real about the wins, the wipeouts, and everything in between.
So if you've ever felt underestimated and used that as fuel, you're in the right club.
Today, we're very excited to have Lisa Carter with us, and she's going to talk us through managing motherhood, your money, your financial future from a wealth lens. So, Lisa, thank you so much for being on our podcast. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background and how we got here today.
All right, that's a loaded question. I will make it as relevant as possible. First of all, thanks for having me and congratulations on that phenomenal award, ladies, that you won last week. That was last week already. So that's massive. So I'm a huge fan of both of you and what you're doing. We need more of you here. But okay, so my background from Winnipeg, Manitoba, just a prairie girl at heart, to be perfectly honest. And would say never took school too seriously. I was more so in it just to get the grades for my mom and keep my mom happy. When I was 18, I moved out to Kelowna, BC, ended up getting my degree in finance. I chose finance, honestly. It was a process of elimination. There was the options of marketing, management, accounting, and finance. And I said, Lisa, what do you know the least about? It's finance. Let's go major in finance. That was my only thought process on how to pick my major. And then I had a really good group at school and they helped me kind of get through it. So flash forward to getting my degree in finance, move out to Vancouver, BC, and things just kind of started lining up. I got my first job. Really, that was my first job in finance was more so in the admin space, but then I fell into this space that was actually selling investments to financial advisors, and they were my clients at the end of the day. So they would come to me when it was a matter of learning more about the products, structuring their products for their clients, putting a plan in place. And I worked with over 1,000 financial advisors in British Columbia, and I saw everything from the brand new practices starting out to like the phenomenal billion-dollar practices and the massive teams. So I saw a huge spectrum of what this world looked like. And I always knew in the back of my head that I wanted to eventually be in that advisor's shoe. I didn't know exactly how it would happen, but I always had that thought in my head. I guess the other side of the story is my industry is very male dominated. There's only about maybe 20% of us, and that number's stayed at 20% for the past, oh my gosh, forever, as long as I've been in the industry, for sure. So it's not growing. And to be honest, I always compared myself to all these like very loud, outspoken men in my industry who were very confident, I suppose. And I was like, okay, that's what I need to be successful. So flash forward, I did that selling investments to advisors for almost 8-9 years. And then one of the advisors I worked with decided to retire. And me and my business partner, who was a gentleman, took over her book of business. I took over a business, had 3 kids, business partner left. And then I kind of had to pivot a little bit and I ended up taking over the book of business by myself. So it was, I guess, somewhere in that taking over that business, I kind of had to take the pivot away from, I guess, leaning into what makes me successful in this industry. And it's very different than those type A overconfident men. And that was a whole discovery process on its own, but and I'm still working on it, but it all kind of came to about in the last, I don't know, handful of years here.
Okay, this is kind of off topic, but why aren't women comfortable in this industry? Like, why is it so male dominated?
You know what? It's definitely an industry built by men for men. And I think there's a few things. I think to be an advisor, women are very, it's a commission-based role at the end of the day, right? Like you can find different avenues to get in where you buy a book of business or you work under somebody and you're somebody's succession plan. But at the end of the day, it is very much an eat what you kill sort of industry. And I think that's very intimidating for a lot of women when they want security, when they have so many things riding on their shoulders, right? But I have to say, I wish more women would do it, because at the end of the day, I have control over my own time. If there is a kid's soccer game or cheer practice, I can block it off. And that's a non negotiable, right? So flexible in that sense. Also, the earning potential is unlimited, right? And so you can make as much as you put into this, which is a fantastic thing when, you don't, nobody's controlling what you make. You're not adjusted for inflation each year for your wage. The last thing I would say, why aren't more women doing this? I think that it was just an industry that was made to be overcomplicated. And I don't want to say like the gates were kind of built up to make it intimidating, stating like, oh, you can't sit with us, you can't play with us. But I think that there is a little bit of that, to be perfectly honest, unfortunately.
Makes sense. It feels interesting to me that women wouldn't do that job when in Canada alone women make 92% of the final financial decisions for a household. So it's a lot easier to talk to somebody that you can relate to than it is to a finance
So,
bro.
yeah, from behind the scenes, like, how do you think moms, specifically women in general, are thinking about money differently today from like even like 5 to 10 years ago?
Yeah, that's massive. We all have heard about this great wealth transfer, this silver tsunami, whatever you want to call it, right? But like there are trillions of dollars that are being passed from the baby boomers to Gen X, millennials, Gen Zs, right? And women are actually, they're set to control about 38% of this wealth by 2030, right? So more women, it's interesting. I see and this is generalizing things, but I definitely see a shift where before it was more so they deferred all of the financial decisions to the male in their household for the most part, right? Or it was more a conversation more around investing, what investments we're putting our money into, where can we get our rate of return, maybe a little bit about goals and planning, but it was more, the conversation was more over here. Where I find today, because of this wealth transfer, more women have the wealth, whether it's like you were saying, like 92% of women are the financial decision makers, right? Whether it's from death, divorce, they're now taking these high paying careers. Or to be honest, like some of these women were married to a rich gentleman and now they've left all the inheritance to them, right? So they are in control of more wealth. And I find the conversation is shifting from like, what's the rate of return or investing to more so like goals. What are your goals? But also what are your financial values, right? What do I want this money to do for me? And how do I want to create that legacy around it? So it's much more in the sense of like, how can I sleep better at night and how do my values sort of play a part in this which is pretty neat actually.
So you work closely then with families a lot? Do you have a target with families or women or um, kind of what's your clientele and then what would surprise you about them and how they manage their money?
Yeah. So yes, I work with a little bit of everything. I'd say I have a block of business that's like, your 19-year-old who's just putting their first dollar in their TFSA account or whatever it might be, whatever their goals are. And then I have like your 95-year-old who's wanting to leave a legacy and pass the assets to their next generation. So it's the massive caliber, but a lot of my newer clients tend to be, I'd say, from the like 40 to 60 range, high performing individuals, and they're all their whole family, but a lot of the women are the ones reaching out now, which is pretty neat to see. What are some things that surprise me about working with them? I'd say the shift. I'd say a lot more of the women are coming to me and the men are taking the back seat, which is amazing, but also at the same time the men have to be involved as well, right? You need both parties at all times. Because there's two things that affect every single one of us and you can't get away from. And one is money and the other one is healthcare, right? And you can't keep your head in the sand about either one of those things or you're not going to make it. You're going to get through life, but it's going to be difficult, right? So I would say, yeah, the shift, but at the same time, now there's a lot of conversations like, can you please bring your husband on this call?
I love that. It's like we want to speak to the man of the house, but it's actually the woman. Um, I love that. So, do you think that with the clients that you're working with, obviously they're coming to you, but do you think that in general, people are more proactive or reactive when it comes to wealth and planning and getting ahead of the game? Like, I know it probably is a broad spectrum and the people coming to you are probably trying to do their best, but do you think in general, like enough people are being proactive when it comes to wealth management?
No, I very much see very much it's a reactive, right? It's like, okay, now we've got this house that we need to get a mortgage for. It's like, as a business owner, should I have been paying myself differently? How do I need to flop? And then it seems like a little bit overwhelming last minute, or that's when somebody reaches out to me. So no, I personally find it's very much more reactive, and I'm sort of the uh accountability partner, if you will, and the one that's sort of forward guiding them and bringing, like, looking for all the potential risks or potential like pivots that need to be made. So it's definitely a shift that we need to do, but also when we're so time starved, like, it's very hard, right? We're all just trying to survive at the end of the day, and I think that's what building a good team is all about.
So where do you see the gaps then? Is there different gaps for different groups of people, mothers, entrepreneurs? Like, is there kind of spaces, hot tips that they should take for it?
The gaps within planning.
Yeah, like what are they missing?
Yeah. I would say a lot of the focus is on perhaps what are you investing in versus perhaps how is this going to get me to my goal. um, there needs to be a massive conversation at the end of the day. I'd say maybe 10% of my conversations with my clients are actually spent around what are we investing in. And to be honest, like, the best portfolio at the end of the day is the one that keeps you invested. There's a whole other side of this that we don't talk about enough, and it's the psychological side, right? Um, if you are invested in Bitcoin and you're riding that volatile roller coaster, when that roller coaster is coming down, maybe the roller coaster isn't a good analogy, but because you're not going to jump off a roller coaster, but you're more likely to jump off when it's coming down pretty fast, right? So at the end, and that's the worst thing you could do because nobody can time the markets. We don't know when that roller coaster is going to come back up, and if you miss that first little scoop up on the roller coaster ride, you're missing a massive returns, right? And that's not for you to worry about. That's for me to worry about. But you have to stay on that ride. So there's a whole psychological standpoint that people don't understand. And it's not about always shooting the lights out. It's about stable returns over a long period of time. But then you got to focus over here, like what's actually going to get me to my goals and what's going to help me sleep at night, because that's much more important than this ride that you're on over here.
So if you're risk averse, you probably shouldn't invest in Bitcoin.
Facts. Facts. But I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, like, this is the thing. I always say to my clients, like, they'll come to me and they say, oh, I might play money at Wealth Simple, right? And they're trading stocks and they come to me with all these crazy ideas. And I say, that's great. Like, go do that. That's more like gambling, right? So keep that to 10% of your portfolio and leave me your serious money, right? Because your serious money, you don't want to start over concentrating in one specific area or whatever it might be, right?
So what if an entrepreneur came to you and was like, I want to cash everything out and start a business?
I feel like there's a little bit of a underlying story to this.
Well, no, I'm just
Never
wondering what your
broke, help
advice would
us.
be.
Honestly, to be
What do you do
honest,
if you're broke?
I'm such a proponent of entrepreneurs and like women doing that, especially women doing this. Like, I just love it. And I find that it's so interesting because this opens up a massive conversation about how women are actually funding these businesses because we are bootstrapping them, right? We're not getting the capital from the VC firm, the venture capital firms. We're not getting a lot of the investments from outside investors. Do we want it at the end of the day? We retain more control when we're bootstrapping, to be honest. But it is interesting because women only receive 2% of that funding. So we're hustling and we're making it work. I'm a big proponent of that. Obviously, I'd say do it within reason. But I mean, I'm such a cheerleader for women that want to make their dreams happen.
Just have a partner like you while we do it.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing is, like, they always focus on, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but you're probably focusing on building your business, right? And there has to be a little bit of planning for your future on the same time over here, right? And like having those partners that are going to tell you, hey, if you're ever selling your business, this is how you should be set up. Or um, let's not rely on the sale of the business to fund our retirement, right? Or how do we set this business up for the best possible multiple when we do sell? So I think it's really hard to like pull yourself out and look at the grand scheme of things. But again, that's why you have a team. And I think every woman, man, mom, anybody, they should just have a team of those professionals that they trust that all talk together and can all have that conversation, right?
Yeah, I think that's super important. So let's switch gears. You're a mom. You and I bonded over being moms and also twin moms, which is a whole different sad club that we're a part
Oh,
of. It's a
It's a
terrifying
smaller
club,
club.
but that was like what brought us together. It was like, oh, you have a 5-year-old and 3 or 2-year-old twins. I was like, I have a 5-year-old and 2-year-old twins. So one thing that I've talked a lot about with friends in different industries is the opportunity cost of childcare. So when you think about childcare, it obviously has gotten a bit more affordable for parents now because the government's got involved. I mean, our taxes are all going up, but like that's a different conversation. But how do you think families should think about the cost from a wealth perspective about childcare?
yeah, that's a good question. And yes, we bonded over twins. My son, one of the twins, they're 4 years old. Last night we fought over, he didn't want to go to bed because he had too long of a nap. He decided to take all of our toilet paper rolls and soak them. And then, like, it was a battle for 2, 3 hours. So I'm on my second cup of
Also,
coffee.
like boys, like you and I have the same struggle. Like my twin boy is a lunatic. Like he is literally like girls are playing nicely and he is just like Godzilla gonna go smash out all the things that they're doing.
Yeah, it's just very different. You definitely have to just run them, like,
Yeah.
almost like a dog. But
It's
anyways,
almost like you need like to get like a little like treadmill and then just like tie them to it and just like let them run.
and have like that fishing rod with a little like candy in front of them. So they're just like running towards the candy and have
Yes.
things that they could punch along the way.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Anyways, sorry. I
Yeah.
digress from
All
boys.
right.
There's something else.
Back to the cost of childcare. To be honest, like your biggest asset is your ability to earn an income, and childcare can often provide like the highest ROI for a household, is my personal opinion. And I think that it's so much more than just the dollars and cents. I'm a big proponent on either side, and I totally understand being a stay at home mom. And I understand the parent that's super like ambitious and wants to just work a ton and needs full support on the back end with the nannies and the childcare and all of the above, right? So I see both camps. And there's even been times where I've said, oh my gosh, my life would almost be easier if I just quit my job and I was a full time mom. But then you really got to reframe it and say, okay, I'm paying this 2000 in Vancouver, like 2000, oh, sometimes could be 3000 plus per month for childcare, right? Really have to say, like, what are you actually buying at the end of the day? You're buying your time, all things that we wish we had more of. You're buying a reduction of that mental load that we is massively talked about right now. And I think all three of us are going through that, right? Like that long list that just doesn't end. So you're buying that cognitive load reduction, career continuity, right? So just the ability to continue to grow in your career, continue to earn an income, continue to increase your income. I'd say also emotional presence with your kids. It's so much more than just um, shipping them off for the day, but you're so much more present when they come home. And honestly, less resentment with your significant other. I find sometimes, even now, like we do have childcare and that resentment can build up. But yeah, I'd say it's just such an investment versus an expense. And you have to look at that like with education, it's an investment in yourself and it's going to pay off in the long run, right? The same thing with childcare, is my personal opinion.
I love that because I've had these conversations with friends where it's like, well, it's not worth it for me to go back to work after mat leave because childcare is this amount. So I would just be paying like my entire paycheck towards childcare. And I've tried to like change their mind and be like, okay, but like both of you had the kid. So technically, like it shouldn't just be your paycheck that would be paying for it. And also, what are you missing out on in those 5 years from your kid being a baby and then going all the way to kindergarten, right? Like in those 5 years, you're going to lose advancement opportunities. You're going to lose like new skills, new connections. Like there's so much more that you miss than just the cost of what you're paying for daycare, that I've really tried to talk to some of my friends that are a bit more traditional in that sense
Yeah.
of like, no, like it is worth it for you to pay it because this is what's going to happen. Because not going to work for 5 years and then trying to get back into the workforce, like look how much things have changed now, even with like AI and technology and things like that. Like to come back to that after not being in that for 5 years or more, if you have more than one kid, is huge.
It's massive. And I also look at it from so there's a massive difference when we talk about planning for women versus men. And okay, I'm stereotyping, but let's be honest, like most of the women are the ones that take the time off for like the maternity leave, the child rearing, whatever it might be, right? So you've got to think about it. We're already set from a disadvantage. Okay, let's even back it up even further. We're less likely to negotiate for our salaries, right? There is a pay gap. We're all very aware of this. We pay more for things like razors and deodorant, and we have this pink tax that we talk about, right? So we're all already set up from a disadvantage. And I don't want this to be all doom and gloom. I just want to state that it is very different. And then, so we then jump out of the workforce. And again, I'm both sides. I completely agree, but you have to be willing to sort of make up for it. But jumping out, we're now probably not paying into our pensions, right? We're not getting, potentially not getting the career advancements. To be honest, I've heard of a few people that have been even let go on their mat leaves, which is, that's a whole different ballgame. So yeah, you're not saving. All of these things compound, and we're probably retiring with less for the most part. So we have to plan differently. So we're retiring with less, and then we're outliving our male counterparts. So I'd say this is a whole other big story about how this affects us from just a complete retirement legacy life plan.
So what can we do? What's realistic for us? So if we're in the most expensive stage of our lives with our children and they're costing us everything like baton competition outfits every fucking week, what's a realistic expectation for me in this stage with my children? How much should I be trying to save? How much of zero is should be saved? And like what should we be doing?
That's a good question. Yeah, because we're all in survival mode, right? Trying to line up the summer camps right now, and it's just like, well, working at the same time, so that's always fun. And then finding out you can't get in, the twins can't get into this summer camp, right? We're all in
Well,
survival.
one can, but the other one can't, so then you're still stuck with one the whole summer.
Totally. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't have time to work anyways. Anyways, back to the
This
question. So
this is
what
what I'm doing right now, bejeweling costumes.
right? Yeah, moms and multitasking. Although as the older I get, the realization is I can't actually multitask.
No, it's a mess all the time.
Yeah. Okay. So what can we do when we're saving from zero? I mean, okay, the non-negotiables are really just the protection at the end of the day. Like protection is number one, right? If you don't have that in place, and I'll explain what that is in a minute, you're going to fall backwards and your retirement date's going to get pushed out, or you're going to retire with less. So if you're not saving, if you at least have that protection in place, that's going to be number one. So what does that entail? For sure, I would want like life insurance, right? You want a life insurance policy on the other person for deaths. Because what if your spouse passes away and you retire? There you go. Or yeah, Alexa, I
Or a
just
business partner, I
for a business partner, for a
If I
spouse.
die, it was Sarah.
There you
it
go,
was,
right? But if that
but not
person's
me. I'm
gone,
uninsurable.
that's a different story, right? That's another workaround, but, yeah, you want the life insurance because if they're not there, you have to then pick up their expenses. But think about it, you also want it on that stay-at-home mom because that work or dad, I'm sorry, I should not generalize, but that stay-at-home parent, because what is their actual, like, working capital? Like, what is the cost of that person staying home? The other person has the ability to go to work every day. If that stay-at-home person wasn't there, you would be hiring a nanny, right? Maybe a food delivery service, night nurse. I'm not sure. Like all of those things come into play, right? So both spouses need to be have that, and probably a really good disability policy on the working parent. Um, so life insurance is a huge piece of that, but also honestly, everyone should have 3 to 6 months worth of an emergency fund there. So I say 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses sitting in an account that's accessible, probably in a high interest savings account or a cashable GIC. It could be in a TFSA if you have your TFSA room, but something that's liquid, that's accessible, that you could pull out at any time, that's not invested in the markets. Because you don't want to be on that roller coaster ride, and that roller coaster ride, like that roller coaster is now at the bottom, and then all of a sudden you need a new roof on your house and you have to pull that money out, right? So now it's going to take you maybe that roller coaster is now broken and you're pushing it back up the hill, right? So you've got to bring in more capital to get you back to where you were. So the emergency fund is definitely a non-negotiable. There has to be some non-negotiables, right? And then, have that in place, I would say
So is that 3 to 6 months of your fixed costs, or is that 3 to 6 months of your total life cost?
yeah, your total life costs. Obviously, you can pull out if you want to pull out like the clothing budget but I would say your total costs.
It's not a
Yeah.
small amount with children.
No, it's not. And you just slowly pick away at it, right? So if I say you like 60 grand, you're going to say, go fly a kite, right? But if you're working towards it and every month you're just putting a couple $100s away and it's just sitting there, that's something.
Okay, that makes me feel better. So you'd say like some non-negotiables, obviously life insurance, an emergency fund. Let's talk more about like the investing side of things. So if someone is totally new to investing or has kind of just like closed their eyes, um, me, where would be the simplest place to start? You mentioned like things like Simple and how it's kind of like fun gamification of your investments, but like what would you recommend as like the simplest, best way to start?
Yeah. So actually, you know what's interesting? I don't want to put Simple in that bucket at all because I'm actually big proponents of them. And anything that gets you saving money is a good thing, right? That was just like I have that conversation with people. A lot of the times some clients are using it for the buying and selling and more of like the
It's like
gambling.
the dopamine hit, like, ooh, you know?
Yeah. And actually the dopamine is a hit and the emotional side of things is something we should talk about as well. But Um, honestly, for moms, it's like we don't want another thing to think about. So just set it up and have it automatically come out, even the smallest amount from a paycheck and going into, let's say, a TFSA. So $50 every 2 weeks, you don't even notice. Set it and forget it, right? Your biggest asset is time. And as long as you get that compounding, so that growth on growth going, it's huge. You you don't have to choose stocks. You don't have to be the most knowledgeable person in the room. You just have to set repeatable habits. And that is going to far outperform people who think that they know what the next hot ticket is, to be honest. Like there are two behavioral traits that will help you outperform, and it's a low ego and patience, right? And those are
We
massive.
don't have either of those things.
Perfect. Yeah, it's like it's the behavioral side again, right? So set it up, forget it, and just put it into like a diversified ETF portfolio. You could put it into the BMO ETF portfolio. Fidelity has an all-in-one portfolio. You don't have to rebalance it. You don't have to do anything. You just put it in and forget about it, and you're going to be fine at the end of the day, right?
What about an RESP for children?
It's massive. It's amazing, right? I'd say a big thing is also taking advantage, of free money wherever you can get it. And one is obviously in the workplace when they match you RSP matching or when you have it in sort of like pension setup. The second one is an RESP. And I would say, obviously, put your own, like the cliche sort of like take care of yourself first, put on your own life mask first. Like our RSPs and your retirement is number one. At the end of the day, like the kids you'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. We're all going to be fine, right? So take care of yourself first. But RESP is a phenomenal, phenomenal tool.
It's
So
also 2,500 max per kid per year, right? Because anything more than that doesn't get the free money part. So it should go into something else.
So yeah, here's the thing. You could put in $2,500 per kid, you get a 20% grant, so you get a $500 grant per year. If you've missed a year, you can buy back 1 year at a time. So if you start when the kid is 4 or 5, you can put in $5,000 a year and get $1,000 grant and start buying back 1 year at a time. So yes, 20% of like a free grant that you get from the government. And then obviously it's invested. So you can put it in any investment that you want. I would say be sort of cautious with some of these like group RESP investments. I won't say any names, but I'd say you're probably better off just going to a bank and investing it like you want to. And make sure when you open one, if you plan on having more than one kid, that it's a family plan. So you can have both kids as beneficiaries on the same account. So they can actually share the capital that you've put in between them. So if one kid wants to be a doctor and the other one wants to be something else that doesn't cost as much, right? They can share that pool of capital. So yeah, you get the 20% grant. Here's another thing that most people don't know about is actually the BC government gives you a free $1,200. It's called the BC Training, Education, and Savings Grant. You do not have to contribute a penny to get this money. You have to apply for it is the catch, and most people don't even know about it. So you have to apply for it between the ages of 6 and 9, and it's just a form that goes to the government, but it's free money in this.
Alex, apply.
Yeah, I'm like, "Oh, I still" anyways, continuing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna segue again. So, talking about just, like, financial independence and protection. So, I thankfully came from, like, a very, like, simple divorce, like, it wasn't, like, hostile, there wasn't a bunch to fight over, but my parents had the complete opposite, right? There was pensions involved, there was RESP or RSPs, they even fought about air miles,
Yeah.
like, the most ridiculous things.
Yeah.
So, how important is it for women to maintain that financial independence even in those strong partnerships?
It's huge. As I mentioned before, there's like two things that affect absolutely everybody, and it's finance and healthcare. And you just can't be an ostrich about it, right? Where the ostrich puts his head in the sand and he just pretends that nothing else is around. So you really have to invest in that knowledge. But I would say at the end of the day, you really need to maintain a sense of independence, right? So know where all the assets are, make sure that you have money in and accounts in your name and you are saving under yourself and you have those things going on there. I received a call the other day from this woman who was referred to me from a mortgage broker, and she basically said she didn't really know what she was asking, to be honest, but she calls me, we jump on a call, and she's like, I'm going through a divorce and I don't understand anything. So she's like, my husband sent me all of these spreadsheets on how we're going to divide the assets, but I didn't know any of these things existed. I don't know what this stuff is. I've never paid attention to this at all. And now and I don't work. And now he's telling me that I'm going to make 70 grand within 3 years. So she pulls up all these spreadsheets with me and she's just like, why is he telling me all of this? Right? Like, this is a very common occurrence, or I would say, as I mentioned, like probably changing, but I have gotten this call very, very often, right? But could you imagine just being hit with this as you're emotionally drained. You're trying to make sure that the kids are okay. You're hanging on by a thread, and now you have to go learn a whole new language and world that you've had never been involved in, right? And they are going to mediation because they can figure it out themselves. But you can see where the disadvantage is, right? And we do not want to be stuck in that spot. And she's just like, I don't like, how do I figure this out? And she didn't feel like she had enough knowledge to fight for what she was actually owed and what she was deserved, right? So you don't know what to ask. You don't know what you don't know. And now you're probably going to walk away from this in a massive disadvantage when you gave up your career and your life to make sure that he was able to go keep his. That's huge.
Well,
I'm
and
all
it's
over it.
building the family, right? Like it's just it all goes together. Um, do you find that there's a lack of confidence in people understanding finances? Is that why they don't learn about it? They don't know the wording, they don't know what it means?
Like there's a little bit of both, right? There's the non-numbers people, and they just get they just shut down when they hear numbers, right? Those are the like, I find it's more of the artistic people or like that side. there's also a little bit of shame on our industry for overcomplicating things, to be perfectly honest, because at the end of the day, yes, can we make things more efficient for you by putting in all these really crazy strategies? Yes. Are they going to help you sleep at night? Is the question that you should be answering. Are they that important to save $2,000 a year? I don't know, right? It's actually not that. To build a solid foundation, it's not that complicated and it's actually not that scary. And it's just something that our industry has not done a good job of.
It's interesting. So you have 3 little people, as do I. Sarah has 2. How are you teaching your kids about money, and how are you, instilling, like, financially confident kids, that know about the value of things? Because, my kids just wanna go to the mall and have me spend everything, or they wanna go to the Cloudland or whatever. How are you teaching your kids about money now, and then how is that going to evolve as they get older?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's so multifaceted. You know what's interesting is actually kids learn most of their money values by the time they're 7 years old. And it's just from observation. So
7?
7.
Oh, I'm
Well,
screwed.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm scared now.
So like Sarah, what was your first memory of money?
My dad had this piggy bank, and he used to put change in it all the time. And then once every like 2 years, my mom would sit on the middle of the living room floor and roll it all into like, before the machines that like rolled your money for you, and like roll it all into rolls and then take like a giant bag to the bank.
Yeah, right? So,
Like, and my dad used to hide 20s in an orange book in the house.
oh my gosh, that's so cute for a
And I
rainy
used
day.
to always take them in high school. I'd be like, "Can I just, like, take that for, like" when I was going out, and I would just take all the money all the time.
Right? Okay. So then flash forward to where how you are now. Do you find that any of those sort of like little things that you observed have followed you into how you handle money today?
Okay, so both my kids have 2 piggy banks,
Yeah.
and, we're big on piggy banks, and so one is their long-term savings and one is their short-term savings. So every time they put stuff into it, like, their grandpas still like, both give them, like, handfuls of change every day. And then the rule is what if you put something in one, you have to put something in the other. Now, because they both only like the gold ones right now, they keep putting those in the short term savings that they get to spend their gold ones, and then everything else, like all the toonies and everything else, go into the long term savings. So the long term saving is actually ending up like fairly well off. But like I always told them that that's for a car when they're 16. Their quote long-term savings is 16 years of savings, and they both have 2 of them and they look at them all the time.
Right. Which is probably instilled from when you were very young watching your parents.
Yeah, the piggy bank, right? It's all
Yeah.
about the piggy bank. And it was a broken out it was a elephant piggy bank and the nose was broken and my parents still use it.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. I love that. So yeah, think about it. Like there, you don't even really have to teach them things like I do. Don't get me wrong, and I'll tell you what I do, but they observe it. So it's like how you act around them is also massive and what they see with their own eyes, which is hugely influential. Um, but just like if my husband and I are fighting over money or whatever it might be, that's what sticks with them, right? So yeah, it's very much like I had a conversation with my daughter this morning, and I'm a big proponent of also I'd say thinking more entrepreneurial as well, right? On top of like, yeah, we're gonna do the piggy bank thing. I went to Chat GPT and I basically asked Chat, I was like, hey, can you come up with like an entrepreneurial exercise for my daughter? She's 6 years old. Let's tailor it to her. Like, let's go through a fun and it spat out this really cool, fun thing to do for the two of us about making an ice cream shop and like how to make this ice cream shop profitable, but doing it in a way that a 6 year old can understand. So that's just something fun. I like to do that. I feel like it gets her thinking a little bit differently. Um, something like that, right? But also just involving them in the household decisions, right? So having that, like having the talk around, like are all these summer camps going to cost us? Where's our budget at? Like just having her around and sort of participating in that is huge because they absorb so much. Yeah.
It's funny to watch kids almost like try to mimic you, but then also just ask for more and more things. Violet just wants the donuts all the time. She's big on the cookies and donuts.
Well, Layden loves her Starbucks hot chocolate after school. I'm like, you realize that's like $5, right?
Yeah, I make them pull those loonies out of their piggy bank anytime. Like, I'm like, if you want that dress, sure. But that Belle bought a ball gown one time from Winners, and she had to pull 24 gold coins out of that piggy bank. And oh man, she was mad. But it was like a ball gown with like a hula hoop in the bottom. Loved
Yeah,
it.
so you're like, if you're gonna get unnecessary things, you can use your own
I was
money.
like, we don't need that.
100%, right? And like learning the worth of the dollar and all of that, and the splitting up your earnings between the spend and the save, like the future you. Um, it's all huge.
She was devastated. She was like, "You're taking all my gold coins."
How dare you? So, Lisa, what's a pattern that you see in high net worth families or individuals that you think the basic person could learn something from?
Yeah, I was thinking about this morning a little bit. Patterns you see in high net worth families. It's interesting. Like we all, especially in Vancouver, like I'm in Vancouver, BC, cost of housing is through the roof. It is wild. Everything costs a lot of money, and there's a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck, right? And it's like at the end of the day, you're sitting in your bed and you're like, oh, if only I had more money, my life would be better. And I think that's true to a certain extent, and then it plateaus. And there's a certain point where more wealth in the family is actually a little bit of a burden, right? Like if you think about it between like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, they're wealthy as can be, but or like they're and the difference between their wealth is like billions of dollars. But at the end of the day, they can both do whatever they want, and it means nothing. But I would say like there's sort of a point where as long as you have a roof over your head, you're not living paycheck to paycheck, you've got good healthy food in your kids' mouths, you've got family and friends around, right? Or whatever's important to you, any exponential growth in money after that is kind of it's not going to make you happier at the end of the day, right? I can tell you the story about this family that this gentleman, the dad, he sold his business for I think it was $150 million, and he had three sons. And the sons, three of them don't work right now. They're waiting for their dad to pass so that they can live a cushy rest of their life, right? The dad already gave them each $2 million that they've basically blown through. And the dad also gave them $500,000 for the grandkids, which I know that one of them ended up using this money for um, to buy a property in Whistler for themselves, but that's another story. So the dad is being looked at like a piggy bank, right? To a certain extent. And you've got to think like, yeah, you raise them and the dad's super down to earth, like what happened. But there's a point where like more money does mean more problems, right? And long story short, the dad actually wants to give the rest of his fortune to charity, but he hasn't told the sons yet.
Maybe they're listening. Just kidding. My dad had this my dad always had like lots of cheesy quotes, but one thing he always said was money doesn't buy happiness, just a better brand of misery. And I've always believed that. Like, I think that people that have money a lot of the times aren't happy and that it doesn't buy happiness. Like, it's nice to feel comfortable in your day to day life and be able to do things. But at the end of the day, when you have so much of it, it doesn't, like you said, like it doesn't matter if Jeff Bezos has 300 billion and Elon only has 100 billion. Like they're able to do what they need to do. And I don't think either of them are happy people.
Well, it's
I mean,
like the
I would like to
Notorious
be blessed,
B.I.G. song.
right? I would
Mo
like to,
money,
I
mo
mean, like, I'm
problems.
willing to try that. Like, if the universe wants to give me money, I could see if I was like miserable or something. But like, I think you're definitely right that like, yeah, there's a limit that I think that we all hit, and that it doesn't mean that you're happier or living a better like life than you would if you were poor.
No, not at all. And yeah, that person, there's so many stories out there where, and not necessarily that family, but the person or the individual with more money and potentially higher ego. And um, I mean, if you've ever read the Morgan Housel book, what is his newest one? Oh my gosh, it's gonna blank me. This is my mom brain kicking in, but the one on the art of spending money. It's actually so phenomenal. It's basically saying that the person with that is like the absolute penny pincher, the dollar hoarder, and the big spender both have issues because money's controlling them, right? But he also talks about this story where There was this like billionaire gentleman, and he was just admired like you wouldn't believe. I can't remember his name. And then he talks about the story about this other janitor who's like the penny pincher, cleaning people's toilets, not doing anything, doesn't have any hobbies. If you asked him what his hobbies were, and this janitor passes away and he leaves millions of dollars to charity, millions of dollars. And everyone's like, where did he get all this money? And then, like 6 months later, this billionaire then goes bankrupt, right? So things always aren't what they appear on the outside. And it's really the habits and your values at the end of the day is what makes a wealthy person.
I like that. I like that a lot. Um, so to finish up, we like to do rapid fire sometimes where we go back and forth and ask you some questions. They're either quick answers or one sentence or things like that. So the first one is, what's the biggest financial mistake you see on repeat?
Chasing the shiny objects that are going to provide the highest rate of return.
What is the most underrated wealth building habit?
Patience.
Ooh, that's a good one. One thing every mom should do this year financially.
Have a monthly money date with yourself and just go through where you're spending your money, where you're saving it, and just know what's happening with it. And go get a glass of wine and probably a pedicure at the same time.
It. I can live by this advice. If you had to define a rich life, what would you define it as in one sentence?
Yeah, I'd say a rich life is having the freedom to choose how you spend your time and your energy and just, yeah, and having that optionality, right?
So if a mom was listening and feels behind financially, what would you say to her?
Don't beat yourself down, right? And just small, tiny habits. You don't want to change the whole landscape tomorrow because you're just going to feel overwhelmed. It's the 1% change every single day that's going to really make the longest effect on your whatever your goals, reaching your goals.
Love it. Okay, Lisa. Well, if people want to learn more or work with you, where can they find you?
Yes, our website is westmountwealth.com, or you can find me on Instagram where I share lots of really fun, annoying stories about my kids at Lisa_Westmountwealth.
Also, you do a really fun event for women and support women in a lot of ways in business, which is awesome.
Yeah, I love it. It's just the piece that, like my passion, the piece of passion that I bring in that fuels me, right?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm going to go write down all the things that you said, and we will regroup in a couple months.
Amazing. I love it. Thanks, ladies.